Robert Kiyosaki begins Chapter 1 of Rich Dad Poor Dad by sharing a formative memory from his childhood and experience that shaped the core philosophy behind the entire book. He was just a young boy living in Hawaii, surrounded by classmates who had more money than him. This contrast in economic status sparked his curiosity and desire to understand wealth. At the age of 9, he and his best friend Mike decided they wanted to be rich. They didn't quite know what that meant or how to achieve it, but their determination was real. They began trying to make money by melting down toothpaste tubes, which at the time were made of lead, to mold counterfeit nickels. When Kiyosaki, father, referred to as Poor Dad, discovered what they were doing, he was both amused and disapproving. He told them that what they were doing was illegal and encouraged them to learn how to make money legally. From that point, Robert and Mike approached Mike's dad, who would later be referred to as the Rich Dad, for guidance. Mike's father was a successful businessman who owned multiple stores and was in the process of building a financial empire. Despite his lack of formal education, he was shrewd, experienced, and well-versed in the ways of money. Rich Dad agreed to teach the boys, but only if they were willing to work for him and learn in a way that wasn't traditional. He made it clear that he wouldn't give them direct answers. Instead, he would teach them through experience, by making them think and forcing them to question the system they had been raised to trust. The boys began working for Rich Dad at one of his convenience stores for 10 cents an hour, which even at that time was very low pay. Robert soon became frustrated. The work was boring, repetitive, and he felt exploited. After several weeks of this, Robert decided to confront Rich Dad and express his dissatisfaction. This moment became a pivotal teaching experience. Rich Dad listened to his complaints, then explained that he was intentionally putting Robert through a lesson in how most people respond to money. He wanted him to feel the anger, frustration, and desire that many people feel when they work hard but earn little. This, he explained, was a reflection of the real world. Most people, he said, work jobs they don't like, for money that's never enough, because they are emotionally driven by fear and desire. Rich Dad explained that the poor and middle class work for money, while the rich have money work for them. This was the first time Robert heard this idea, and it challenged everything he had been taught by his biological father and traditional schooling. Poor Dad, a highly educated and respectable man, always emphasized job security, a steady paycheck, and academic excellence as the path to success. In contrast, Rich Dad believed that financial education, risk-taking, and understanding how money flows were far more important than formal education when it came to building wealth. The conversation turned to fear, specifically the fear of not having money. Rich Dad explained that most people wake up every day afraid they won't have enough to pay bills, feed their families, or afford the things they want. That fear drives them to work harder, but not necessarily smarter. Instead of learning how to make money work for them, they end up stuck in a cycle known as the rat race. They work for money, get paid, pay bills, and then repeat the cycle until retirement or death. Their emotions, fear and desire, are manipulated through marketing, peer pressure, and societal expectations. They spend money on things they think will make them happy, only to find themselves deeper in debt or still unsatisfied. In short, money ends up controlling them, rather than the other way around. Rich Dad's point was that people must learn to master their emotions when it comes to money. He used the analogy of a donkey being lured by a carrot tied in front of its face, never realizing it's chasing something it will never catch. In this analogy, money is the carrot, and the donkey is the person stuck in the system. He explained that only by stepping back, observing the system, and questioning its design can a person escape that trap. This requires a shift in mindset, moving from being a passive employee to becoming an active learner and investor. Robert began to see that there were two sets of values shaping his life. Poor Dad valued stability, academic success, and social approval. Rich Dad valued financial independence, critical thinking, and boldness. Both fathers cared for him, but they had entirely different worldviews. One believed in climbing the corporate ladder. The other believed in owning the ladder itself. One saw money as something earned through hard work. The other saw it as a tool that, if understood, could be multiplied with little effort. Robert found himself at a crossroads between these two ideologies. Rich Dad emphasized that opportunities are not seen with the eyes, they are seen with the mind. Most people don't recognize opportunities to make money because they've been trained to look for jobs rather than value. He explained that learning how money works, how to manage risk, and how to spot investment opportunities are skills anyone can develop. However, most people don't because they're afraid of making mistakes. They fear failure more than they value growth. He said the key is to train your mind, not to react emotionally to money, but to use logic, patience, and strategy. This mental strength is what separates the rich from everyone else. Another lesson Rich Dad introduced was that people often confuse being busy with being productive. Working long hours doesn't necessarily mean you're getting ahead. Many people work harder and longer just to stay in the same place financially. The real secret lies in creating or acquiring assets that generate income. Assets, according to Rich Dad, are things that put money in your pocket even when you're not working. These could be businesses, real estate, stocks, intellectual property, anything that earns income passively. In contrast, liabilities are things that take money out of your pocket. Understanding this distinction is crucial, but it's rarely taught in schools or discussed in households. Rich Dad also warned against the illusion of security. He said that job security is a myth, especially in a fast-changing economy. Companies can lay off employees, industries can collapse, and degrees can become obsolete. The only true security lies in financial education and adaptability. By investing in your financial intelligence, you increase your ability to make smart decisions no matter what's happening in the economy. He argued that the education system doesn't prepare students for financial independence. It teaches people how to be employees, not entrepreneurs or investors. As Robert absorbed these lessons, he began to see the world differently. He noticed how people were trapped in a cycle of fear and consumption. He saw how education taught people to memorize facts but not how to manage their finances. He realized that the rich weren't necessarily smarter, they just had different habits, different mindsets, and different ways of viewing risk and reward. He understood that if he wanted to escape the trap that so many others fell into, he would have to think independently, question convention, and take responsibility for his own learning. He also learned that opportunities often appear in the form of problems. Where others saw obstacles, the rich saw possibilities. The ability to solve problems, to provide value in a unique way, is what creates wealth. Rich Dad encouraged him to develop the habit of asking questions like, how can I afford this? How can I make this work? How can I turn this situation to my advantage? This mindset of curiosity and persistence would become a cornerstone of his financial philosophy going forward. Robert Kiyosaki begins Chapter 1 of Rich Dad Poor Dad by sharing a formative memory from his childhood and experience that shaped the core philosophy behind the entire book. He was just a young boy living in Hawaii, surrounded by classmates who had more money than him. This contrast in economic status sparked his curiosity and desire to understand wealth. At the age of 9, he and his best friend Mike decided they wanted to be rich. They didn't quite know what that meant or how to achieve it, but their determination was real. They began trying to make money by melting down toothpaste tubes, which at the time were made of lead, to mold counterfeit nickels. When Kiyosaki, father, referred to as Poor Dad, discovered what they were doing, he was both amused and disapproving. He told them that what they were doing was illegal and encouraged them to learn how to make money legally. From that point, Robert and Mike approached Mike's dad, who would later be referred to as the Rich Dad, for guidance. Mike's father was a successful businessman who owned multiple stores and was in the process of building a financial empire. Despite his lack of formal education, he was shrewd, experienced, and well-versed in the ways of money. Rich Dad agreed to teach the boys, but only if they were willing to work for him and learn in a way that wasn't traditional. He made it clear that he wouldn't give them direct answers. Instead, he would teach them through experience, by making them think and forcing them to question the system they had been raised to trust. The boys began working for Rich Dad at one of his convenience stores for 10 cents an hour, which even at that time was very low pay. Robert soon became frustrated. The work was boring, repetitive, and he felt exploited. After several weeks of this, Robert decided to confront Rich Dad and express his dissatisfaction. This moment became a pivotal teaching experience. Rich Dad listened to his complaints, then explained that he was intentionally putting Robert through a lesson in how most people respond to money. He wanted him to feel the anger, frustration, and desire that many people feel when they work hard but earn little. This, he explained, was a reflection of the real world. Most people, he said, work jobs they don't like, for money that's never enough, because they are emotionally driven by fear and desire. Rich Dad explained that the poor and middle class work for money, while the rich have money work for them. This was the first time Robert heard this idea, and it challenged everything he had been taught by his biological father and traditional schooling. Poor Dad, a highly educated and respectable man, always emphasized job security, a steady paycheck, and academic excellence as the path to success. In contrast, Rich Dad believed that financial education, risk-taking, and understanding how money flows were far more important than formal education when it came to building wealth. The conversation turned to fear, specifically the fear of not having money. Rich Dad explained that most people wake up every day afraid they won't have enough to pay bills, feed their families, or afford the things they want. That fear drives them to work harder, but not necessarily smarter. Instead of learning how to make money work for them, they end up stuck in a cycle known as the rat race. They work for money, get paid, pay bills, and then repeat the cycle until retirement or death. Their emotions, fear and desire, are manipulated through marketing, peer pressure, and societal expectations. They spend money on things they think will make them happy, only to find themselves deeper in debt or still unsatisfied. In short, money ends up controlling them, rather than the other way around. Rich Dad's point was that people must learn to master their emotions when it comes to money. He used the analogy of a donkey being lured by a carrot tied in front of its face, never realizing it's chasing something it will never catch. In this analogy, money is the carrot, and the donkey is the person stuck in the system. He explained that only by stepping back, observing the system, and questioning its design can a person escape that trap. This requires a shift in mindset, moving from being a passive employee to becoming an active learner and investor. Robert began to see that there were two sets of values shaping his life. Poor Dad valued stability, academic success, and social approval. Rich Dad valued financial independence, critical thinking, and boldness. Both fathers cared for him, but they had entirely different worldviews. One believed in climbing the corporate ladder. The other believed in owning the ladder itself. One saw money as something earned through hard work. The other saw it as a tool that, if understood, could be multiplied with little effort. Robert found himself at a crossroads between these two ideologies. Rich Dad emphasized that opportunities are not seen with the eyes, they are seen with the mind. Most people don't recognize opportunities to make money because they've been trained to look for jobs rather than value. He explained that learning how money works, how to manage risk, and how to spot investment opportunities are skills anyone can develop. However, most people don't because they're afraid of making mistakes. They fear failure more than they value growth. He said the key is to train your mind, not to react emotionally to money, but to use logic, patience, and strategy. This mental strength is what separates the rich from everyone else. Another lesson Rich Dad introduced was that people often confuse being busy with being productive. Working long hours doesn't necessarily mean you're getting ahead. Many people work harder and longer just to stay in the same place financially. The real secret lies in creating or acquiring assets that generate income. Assets, according to Rich Dad, are things that put money in your pocket even when you're not working. These could be businesses, real estate, stocks, intellectual property, anything that earns income passively. In contrast, liabilities are things that take money out of your pocket. Understanding this distinction is crucial, but it's rarely taught in schools or discussed in households. Rich Dad also warned against the illusion of security. He said that job security is a myth, especially in a fast-changing economy. Companies can lay off employees, industries can collapse, and degrees can become obsolete. The only true security lies in financial education and adaptability. By investing in your financial intelligence, you increase your ability to make smart decisions no matter what's happening in the economy. He argued that the education system doesn't prepare students for financial independence. It teaches people how to be employees, not entrepreneurs or investors. As Robert absorbed these lessons, he began to see the world differently. He noticed how people were trapped in a cycle of fear and consumption. He saw how education taught people to memorize facts but not how to manage their finances. He realized that the rich weren't necessarily smarter, they just had different habits, different mindsets, and different ways of viewing risk and reward. He understood that if he wanted to escape the trap that so many others fell into, he would have to think independently, question convention, and take responsibility for his own learning. He also learned that opportunities often appear in the form of problems. Where others saw obstacles, the rich saw possibilities. The ability to solve problems, to provide value in a unique way, is what creates wealth. Rich Dad encouraged him to develop the habit of asking questions like, how can I afford this? How can I make this work? How can I turn this situation to my advantage? This mindset of curiosity and persistence would become a cornerstone of his financial philosophy going forward. Mind your own business. And it introduces a powerful concept that shifts the way people think about employment, entrepreneurship, and financial independence. Robert Kiyosaki begins by explaining that most people confuse their profession with their business. They might work as employees for someone else, earn a paycheck, and think they are doing well. But in reality, they are spending their lives building someone else's business. He stresses that working a job, even a high-paying one, doesn't automatically mean you're on the path to wealth. The key to building wealth lies in focusing on your own business, even while you're employed elsewhere. This means using your job as a temporary vehicle to support yourself while you build income-generating assets on the side. He recalls how Rich Dad always advised him to keep his day job, but to invest his spare time and money into acquiring assets that would generate passive income. These assets over time would grow into his real business, the business he would eventually own, and that would work for him. The lesson wasn't to quit working, but rather to develop a mindset where your job is a stepping stone and not the end goal. Poor Dad, by contrast, believed in job security and promotions, always climbing the corporate ladder but never owning the ladder itself. He placed a lot of value in professional titles and academic degrees but didn't prioritize financial independence. Rich Dad's philosophy was completely different. He believed that true wealth came from owning businesses and investments, not from working for someone else. Robert explains that too many people become trapped in their professions. They focus on being excellent doctors, engineers, teachers, or office workers, but they never take the time to understand how money actually works or how to grow wealth independently. They end up being financially dependent on their jobs, with little to no control over their financial future. Even if they earn well, They spend what they make and often take on more liabilities in the form of mortgages, car loans, and credit card debt. They might appear successful on the surface, but their financial foundations are fragile. Rich Dad always emphasized the importance of controlling your own financial destiny by investing in income-producing assets and treating those investments like a business. Kiyosaki talks about how many people get stuck in what he calls the rat race. They work hard for their employers, pay taxes, buy liabilities they think are assets, and repeat the cycle endlessly. Their financial lives are completely dependent on their employers. They don't realize that while they're working for others, someone else is getting rich off their efforts. He urges readers to shift their mindset. Instead of solely working for a paycheck, begin thinking like an investor or entrepreneur. Ask yourself how you can make your money work for you. This mindset shift is what separates the rich from everyone else. The rich focus on building or buying systems that produce income regardless of their direct involvement. One of the key strategies Rich Dad taught was the importance of building and acquiring assets that consistently put money into your pocket. This includes real estate, stocks, bonds, intellectual property, and businesses. These are things you can own and grow. Over time, if nurtured and managed correctly, they provide steady streams of income and grow in value. In contrast, most people focus on acquiring liabilities that they believe are assets. A house, for example, is often viewed as an asset. But if it's not generating income and requires regular expenses, it actually functions as a liability in most cases. The idea is to focus on acquiring things that produce value and income, not just things that look good or signify status. Kiyosaki uses his own life as an example. While he worked jobs early in his career, he made it a priority to build his asset column. He didn't allow his paycheck to define his lifestyle or spending habits. Instead, he used his income to invest in small real estate deals and other ventures. Over time, those assets began producing income, which allowed him to rely less and less on employment. This is the core of minding your own business, building a portfolio of income-producing assets that will eventually give you financial freedom. Even if you work for someone else, your focus should always be on building your business in the background. He shares that many people believe entrepreneurship is too risky, so they avoid it altogether. However, he argues that relying solely on a job is actually riskier because you have little control over company decisions, the economy, or industry shifts. Businesses can downsize or close, and even loyal, hard-working employees can find themselves unemployed. By contrast, owning assets gives you control and leverage. You can diversify your income sources, protect yourself from economic downturns, and create long-term stability. Rich Dad taught that the moment you start focusing on your own business, your investments, you're learning your income streams. You take your financial power back. Kiyosaki encourages readers to develop the habit of reinvesting in their own financial education and skills. He stresses the importance of constantly improving your ability to spot opportunities, analyze investments, and grow your business acumen. This doesn't necessarily mean starting a brick-and-mortar business. It could mean buying dividend-paying stocks, rental properties, or even creating intellectual property that earns royalties. The idea is to develop something that belongs to you and pays you even when you're not actively working. This is in contrast to a job where your income stops the moment you stop working. He also warns against being too focused on appearances. Many people spend their money trying to look successful, rather than actually becoming financially free. They buy luxury cars, expensive clothing, and large homes, not because these things generate wealth, but because they want to impress others. Meanwhile, they neglect to invest in assets or improve their financial education. Rich Dad taught that looking rich and being rich are two very different things. True wealth is silent and builds quietly in the background through smart decisions and disciplined investing. Robert reflects on how even people who make a lot of money often live paycheck to paycheck. This is because their expenses rise as their income rises. Without financial discipline and literacy, a person earning $1 million a year can be just as broke as someone earning $50,000. The critical skill is not just earning, but managing and growing what you earn. Rich Dad often said that it's not your salary that makes you rich, it's your spending and investing habits. Wealth is built by consistently choosing to put money into your own business instead of someone else's. The chapter also touches on the value of time and the importance of using it wisely. When you mind your own business, you're consciously directing your time toward activities that grow your wealth and bring you closer to financial freedom instead of wasting time on things that offer no return, like excessive entertainment or impulse shopping. You invest your energy into learning, planning, and building. Over time, these small efforts compound. Your assets begin to generate more income, your knowledge increases, and your dependence on your job decreases. Kiyosaki reiterates that the true goal is not just to escape a job, but to gain control over your life. Financial freedom isn't about having millions of dollars in the bank, it's about having enough income from your own business and assets to support your lifestyle without being tied to a paycheck. This freedom gives you options. You can choose what to do with your time, who you want to work with, and how you want to live. This level of freedom only comes when you take ownership of your financial future and prioritize building assets that serve you. He closes the chapter with a reminder that everyone starts somewhere. You don't need to be wealthy to begin building your own business. You need the right mindset, the willingness to learn, and the discipline to make consistent choices that move you toward independence. It starts with understanding what assets are, identifying opportunities, and making the decision to mind your own business regardless of where you are financially today. The history of taxes and the power of corporations. And in this chapter, Robert Kiyosaki delves into how understanding the financial system, especially taxes and corporations, can be a powerful tool for building and preserving wealth. He begins by contrasting the viewpoints of his two father figures. Poor Dad, who worked for the government, believed in paying taxes as a civic duty. He saw taxes as a necessary contribution to society and assumed that the government always acted in the people's best interest. Rich Dad, on the other hand, taught Robert to be skeptical and strategic. He understood how taxes were designed and used his financial education to legally minimize his tax burden through the use of corporations and other structures. Robert introduces the idea that the rich play by a different set of rules, not because they cheat or evade taxes, but because they understand how the system works. He explains that tax laws are not necessarily written to punish the wealthy but to incentivize certain behaviors, like investing in infrastructure, providing housing, or creating jobs. Those who understand these incentives can align their actions with government policy and benefit from significant tax advantages. Corporations, in particular, serve as a legal shield that allows people to deduct expenses, reinvest profits, and pay lower tax rates than individuals. While employees earn, get taxed, and then spend what's left, corporations earn, spend, and then pay taxes on what remains. This key difference gives the wealthy a substantial advantage in preserving and growing their wealth. He goes into the history of taxes to provide context. Taxes were originally meant to be temporary and only applied during times of war or crisis. In earlier societies, there was no permanent income tax. It was only when governments began to grow and needed constant funding that income taxes were introduced and made permanent. The interesting thing, Robert notes, is that the general public supported these taxes under the belief that they would only affect the rich. But over time, tax laws expanded to include the middle class and eventually the working poor. This shift happened gradually, and most people accepted it without fully understanding the long-term implications. Rich Dad used this history to teach Robert that relying on government systems without understanding them could lead to financial vulnerability. Kiyosaki then explains that corporations are not just for big businesses. Even small investors or entrepreneurs can set up corporations or legal entities to protect their assets and gain tax advantages. By establishing a corporation, one can deduct expenses like travel, meals, business equipment, and education that directly contribute to the growth of that business. These are costs that regular employees must pay out of pocket with after dollars. This system creates a gap between those who understand and use the rules and those who don't. Financial education, in this sense, becomes a form of empowerment that helps people navigate the economy intelligently rather than emotionally. He further explains that understanding the power of corporations requires a shift in mindset. Most people are trained to think like employees, to seek job security and benefits. But the rich think like owners and investors. They structure their financial lives to maximize income and minimize taxes. This doesn't mean doing anything illegal. It means understanding how to operate within the rules to your advantage. The rich don't necessarily work harder than others, but they think differently. They study money, tax laws, and corporate structures, and they use that knowledge to create leverage. Kiyosaki describes how Rich Dad taught him to observe the financial behavior of the wealthy. He was taught to ask questions like, how do the rich protect their money? How do they avoid paying more tax than necessary? What structures do they use to manage risk and maintain control over their assets? The consistent answer was corporations. A corporation is a legal entity that separates personal and business finances. It can own property, earn income, and incur expenses. It can also be used to hire family members, purchase vehicles, or invest in assets, all while providing tax benefits and legal protections. This understanding of corporate structure is not typically taught in schools, and that's part of the problem. According to Kiyosaki, the education system trains people to be obedient workers, not strategic thinkers. It fails to teach students how to manage money, navigate taxes, or build financial systems that work in their favor. This lack of financial education leads to dependency, where people rely on jobs, pensions, or government support instead of building their own safety nets. Robert argues that true financial freedom comes from financial literacy, and that includes knowing how to use corporations to your advantage. He also touches on the concept of financial IQ. This includes knowing how to make money, how to protect it, how to budget, how to leverage debt, and how to reduce taxes. The higher your financial IQ, the more control you have over your financial destiny. Taxes are one of the biggest expenses most people face, yet very few take the time to understand how they work or how to legally reduce their burden. Rich Dad believed that every dollar saved in taxes is a dollar earned, and that by using legal entities and understanding tax incentives, you can keep more of your money and reinvest it in your business or investments. Robert illustrates how a person can earn money through a corporation, deduct legitimate business expenses, and then pay taxes on the remaining profit. Compare this to an employee who earns a salary, gets taxed heavily before seeing their paycheck, and then has to cover all living expenses with what's left. The difference in outcomes over time is staggering. This is why Rich Dad taught Robert to build businesses and acquire assets that he could control through corporate structures. It's not just about making money, it's about keeping it and using it wisely. He emphasizes that corporations also provide legal protection. If a corporation is sued, the personal assets of the owner are typically protected, assuming the corporation is structured and managed correctly. This is another layer of security that employees do not have. If an individual is sued personally, all their assets are at risk. But if a business owner is sued through their corporation, only the assets held by that corporation are exposed. This structure is particularly valuable for entrepreneurs, real estate investors, or anyone with significant assets that need protection. Kiyosaki notes that many people shy away from learning about taxes or setting up a corporation because they think it's complicated or expensive. But he argues that the real cost is in not learning. Ignorance can lead to overpaying taxes for decades, missing out on investment opportunities, and exposing yourself to unnecessary risk. He encourages readers to take control of their financial education, consult professionals, and begin learning the basics of how corporations work. By doing so, they can begin to structure their finances in a way that builds wealth instead of depleting it. He gives examples of how wealthy people use limited liability companies, LLCs, as corporations and trusts to organize their investments, manage expenses, and pass on wealth to future generations with reduced tax liability. These tools are available to anyone willing to learn and apply the knowledge. The barrier isn't access, it's mindset. People must be willing to move beyond the employee mentality and begin thinking like business owners. This requires taking responsibility for your own learning and refusing to let fear or complexity stop you from growing. Robert closes the chapter by reiterating that financial literacy is about more than just saving or budgeting. It's about strategy, structure, and smart decision-making. Understanding taxes and corporations gives you an edge. It helps you keep more of what you earn, reduce risk, and create systems that work for you rather than against you. This knowledge is not reserved for the elite. It's available to anyone who takes the time to study, ask questions, and apply what they learn. The goal is not just to make a living, but to build a life of freedom, stability, and financial control through intelligent planning and smart use of the tools available within the system. The Rich Invent Money focuses on creativity, financial intelligence, and the mindset that differentiates the wealthy from everyone else. Robert Kiyosaki introduces the idea that opportunities are not seen with the eyes but with the mind. He explains that most people don't become wealthy not because of a lack of resources or opportunity, but because of a lack of financial education, creativity, and the courage to take calculated risks. Rich Dad taught him early on that financial intelligence isn't just about saving money or budgeting. It's about being able to see opportunities others miss and using knowledge and boldness to turn small ideas into big rewards. In other words, wealth isn't just inherited or earned, it's often invented. Robert begins the chapter by highlighting how people who are financially intelligent are able to create money from nothing. This isn't magic or fraud, but rather the ability to spot value where others see risk or nothing at all. The rich look for problems that they can solve, for undervalued assets that can be developed, for people in need of something they can offer. Financial intelligence gives you the ability to identify patterns, understand markets, and make decisions that others shy away from. In contrast, the poor and middle class often believe that only the already wealthy can make money work for them, so they never attempt to build wealth through creative thinking or investing. He shares stories of how people around him reacted differently to the same financial opportunities. Many people would say, "I can't afford it," or "that's too risky," and they would walk away. But Rich Dad taught him to replace statements with questions, like "How can I afford it?" or "How can I make this work?" These small changes in thinking created big changes in behavior. Instead of avoiding risk, Robert learned to assess and manage it. Instead of focusing on obstacles, he learned to find possibilities. This mindset, nurtured through experience and education, became the foundation of his success as an investor and entrepreneur. Robert then explains that the financial world is full of opportunities, but most people don't recognize them because they've been conditioned to think inside the box. Schools teach students to follow instructions, memorize answers, and avoid making mistakes. But in the real world, especially in the world of money, those who succeed are the ones who are willing to take initiative, question conventional wisdom, and embrace failure as part of the learning process. Rich Dad emphasized that failing is not something to be feared, it's something to be studied and learned from. Those who are too afraid to make mistakes often end up playing it safe for their entire lives. and in doing so, they miss out on the greatest chances to build wealth. In this chapter, Robert also brings attention to the idea that the world is full of money and it's always moving. Every day, trillions of dollars are changing hands in the stock market, real estate, commodities, and various business ventures. People who are financially intelligent understand how to position themselves to catch some of that flow. They know how to study trends, evaluate opportunities, and act when the moment is right. Meanwhile, those who lack financial intelligence often find themselves reacting to events rather than creating them. They wait for someone else to provide security, instead of building it themselves. He provides real-life examples from his own experience in real estate investment. He shares how he would buy underpriced properties in areas poised for growth, fix them up, and then sell or rent them for a profit. These weren't always big, flashy investments. Sometimes they were small, quick deals that only required a few $1,000 but delivered significant returns. The important part wasn't the size of the deal, it was the ability to see the opportunity and act on it. Many people had access to the same information, the same neighborhoods, and even the same capital, but they didn't act because they didn't believe they could. Financial intelligence, according to Rich Dad, is the ability to convert information into action and action into results. Robert emphasizes that one of the most powerful tools for wealth creation is leverage. Financially intelligent people know how to use other people's time, money, and expertise to build their own wealth. This could be through partnerships, loans, or strategic business relationships. Most people only know how to trade time for money. They work a job, get paid by the hour or salary, and try to save what's left. The wealthy, on the other hand, use leverage to scale their efforts and maximize returns. They invest in systems, hire experts, and create networks that allow them to multiply their productivity without multiplying their personal labor. He also discusses how important it is to stay informed and continuously learn. Financial intelligence is not static, it must be updated and refined over time. Markets change, laws evolve, and new technologies emerge. Those who continue learning and adapting are able to stay ahead and take advantage of new opportunities. Rich Dad always stressed reading newspapers, financial journals, and books, attending seminars, and talking to people who were smarter and more experienced. This habit of lifelong learning builds the mental tools necessary to navigate complexity and make intelligent choices in an uncertain world. Robert tackles the common myth that investing is gambling. He clarifies that investing becomes gambling only when it's done without proper knowledge. Just like flying a plane is dangerous for an untrained person, investing without education and preparation is risky. But for those who understand the game, investing becomes a methodical process of identifying patterns, managing risk, and aiming for high returns. He says that financial literacy gives you control over your choices and reduces the fear that keeps most people from even trying. He notes that many people want guarantees. They want someone to tell them exactly what to do, to promise a certain outcome, but the financial world doesn't operate that way. There are no guarantees, only probabilities. Financially intelligent people understand this and learn to thrive in uncertainty. They don't wait for perfect conditions. Instead, they prepare, take calculated steps, and adjust along the way. They see financial challenges not as roadblocks but as puzzles to be solved. This inventive spirit is at the core of what it means to be wealthy, not just in money, but in mindset and creativity. Another important lesson in this chapter is that financial intelligence involves not just the knowledge of money but also emotional discipline. Fear and greed are powerful forces that drive most people's financial decisions. Fear keeps them from acting when they should. Greed makes them take reckless actions when things seem too good to be true. Rich Dad taught Robert to recognize these emotions and not be controlled by them, instead of being reactive financially. Intelligent people use logic, planning, and analysis to guide their decisions. This emotional intelligence is often what separates successful investors from those who get in over their heads. Robert encourages readers to start small, to begin looking for opportunities around them, and to ask better questions. Instead of saying, "That's impossible," ask, "What would it take to make this possible?" Instead of thinking you need a lot of money to invest, think about how to use creativity, partnerships, or knowledge to get started. He believes that financial intelligence gives people the power to see the world through a different lens, one that reveals potential and possibility, instead of limitations and scarcity. He also explains that the process of developing financial intelligence is like developing a muscle. It takes time, effort, and practice. You may fail, you may make bad investments, you may lose money, but these are all part of the learning curve. Rich Dad used to say that every loss is a tuition payment for your financial education. The more you learn from those experiences, the stronger you become. The rich aren't afraid of losses because they know how to recover and grow from them. They use each mistake as a lesson that makes them smarter and more resilient. Robert concludes the chapter by reminding readers that the rich are not necessarily more talented, better educated, or luckier. They are simply better at spotting and seizing opportunities. They use creativity, financial intelligence, and action to invent wealth, rather than waiting for it to be handed to them. The ability to think differently, ask questions, take risks, and learn constantly is what allows them to rise above limitations and create the financial life they want. Work to learn, don't work for money explores one of the most pivotal ideas in Robert Kiyosaki's financial philosophy. This chapter addresses the mindset shift needed to escape the cycle of working solely for a paycheck and instead developing skills that build long-term wealth. Kiyosaki begins by explaining that most people are trained from a young age to think linearly about work, go to school, get good grades, and find a secure job. The problem with this approach is that it focuses on working for money rather than understanding how to make money work for you. He points out that the majority of people are stuck in the cycle of trading time for money without ever acquiring the knowledge necessary to create financial freedom. Robert revisits the lessons from his rich dad, who emphasized that the purpose of a job should be to learn, not just to earn. He contrasts this with the mindset of his poor dad, who pursued higher education, job promotions, and salary increases but never moved beyond financial struggle. Poor dad believed in specialization and encouraged Robert to master one field to ensure job security. Rich dad, on the other hand, believed in learning a little about a lot, especially in areas like sales, marketing, accounting, investing, and leadership. The point was to develop a wide range of skills that would be useful in running a business or managing investments, rather than just being good at one specific job. Kiyosaki explains how early in his career, he took jobs not for the salary but for the experience and the skills he would gain. For instance, he worked for Xerox in sales even though he had no interest in a long-term career in sales. He hated it at first but recognized that learning how to sell and communicate effectively, that was a crucial skill for business and investing. That experience later gave him the confidence to start his own companies and negotiate deals. He notes that many people miss out on growth opportunities because they are too focused on their paychecks and not on the value of the education embedded in their jobs. He brings attention to how the rich are often generalists in skill but specialists in thinking. They can analyze a situation from multiple perspectives and use their versatile skill set to make informed decisions. For example, an entrepreneur may need to understand sales, product development, team management, legal structures, and financial statements. Each of these skills contributes to the success of a business, and a lack in any one of them can create vulnerability. Kiyosaki stresses that these are the types of real-world skills that are rarely taught in school but are absolutely necessary for financial success. Robert goes on to challenge the belief that passion alone leads to success. He argues that people often use the excuse of following their passion to avoid doing uncomfortable or unfamiliar tasks. He shares stories of talented people, writers, artists, technicians who struggle financially because they avoid learning about marketing, finance, or sales, believing those areas are outside their passion. Rich Dad would say that discipline and the willingness to learn what you don't know is more valuable than raw talent. Passion alone doesn't build wealth unless it is combined with business and financial skills. In the chapter, he also emphasizes the power of overcoming the fear of rejection and failure. Sales jobs, entrepreneurial pursuits, and investing all involve risk and the potential for failure, but they also offer invaluable learning experiences. Rich Dad used to say that the ability to sell, to communicate, persuade, and close deals is one of the most important skills anyone can develop. Yet, many avoid it because of fear. Kiyosaki explains that this fear is rooted in the educational system, which punishes mistakes and rewards perfection. In contrast, the business world rewards learning from mistakes, adapting, and pushing forward despite failure. Kiyosaki encourages readers to become students of life and to be intentional about the skills they pursue. Instead of climbing the corporate ladder just to earn more money, he suggests looking for roles or projects that challenge you to grow. Take a lower-paying job if it teaches you something valuable. Volunteer for assignments that expose you to new areas. Surround yourself with people who are smarter or more experienced than you and learn from them. The more diverse your skill set becomes, the more prepared you'll be to handle the challenges of building a business or managing investments. He gives practical examples of areas where people should focus their learning if they want to become financially independent. First is accounting, or the ability to read financial statements and understand the flow of money. Without this knowledge, you cannot make informed decisions about your finances. Second is investing, which involves understanding markets, analyzing risk, and identifying opportunities. Third is understanding markets, knowing how to observe trends, consumer behavior, and how supply and demand affect value. Fourth is the law, particularly tax law, corporate law, and contract law. These areas help protect your assets and maximize your returns legally. Finally is sales and marketing, because if you can't sell, you can't succeed in business. Kiyosaki also talks about the importance of communication and people skills. Whether you're trying to sell a product, convince an investor, or manage a team, your ability to deal with people will determine your success. He stresses that emotional intelligence is as vital as financial intelligence. You must learn to handle rejection, deal with criticism, and work with people who may not think like you. Being able to influence and lead people is a major advantage in any financial pursuit. He recalls how Rich Dad encouraged him to study the lives of successful people, not to idolize them, but to understand how they thought and what skills they mastered. He studied entrepreneurs, investors, and leaders to learn how they made decisions and built wealth. He noticed that their stories often involved failure, sacrifice, and learning outside the traditional path. Many took jobs beneath their abilities, not for the money but for the lessons they could extract. This kind of deliberate learning is what allowed them to build strong financial foundations and eventually wealth that lasted. Robert also discusses the value of being entrepreneurial, even within a job. He says that if you're not ready to start your own business, you can still build an entrepreneurial mindset by treating your job like your own business. Find ways to improve systems, deliver value, learn new processes, and increase your influence. This mindset shift not only prepares you for future ventures but often leads to better opportunities even within the corporate world. Companies recognize and reward individuals who think like owners rather than just employees. Toward the end of the chapter, he addresses the criticism that many financially successful people face. Society often values academic success over financial success and judges those who prioritize business or investing as greedy or unethical. Kiyosaki counters this by stating that financial success provides freedom, security, and the ability to help others. When you are financially educated and independent, you are not a burden on anyone and you can choose to make a greater impact. He encourages readers to view the pursuit of financial education not as selfish, but as responsible and empowering. Robert wraps the chapter by reaffirming that the world rewards people who know what they're doing. If you want to be successful financially, you need to be intentional about what you learn, how you apply that knowledge, and how you grow from experience. You have to be willing to step out of your comfort zone, learn things that aren't always easy, and take risks that stretch your abilities. The value isn't in a job title or a salary, it's in the skills you gain, the knowledge you apply, and the mindset you develop over time. Those who work only for money may get by, but those who work to learn are laying the foundation for lasting wealth and freedom. Overcoming obstacles focuses on the 5 primary reasons why financially capable individuals still fail to achieve wealth. These 5 obstacles: fear, cynicism, laziness, bad habits, and arrogance stand in the way of people who already possess the knowledge but lack the courage or discipline to take meaningful financial action. Robert Kiyosaki explains that acquiring financial knowledge is just one part of the journey. The ability to act on that knowledge and manage the emotional and psychological challenges along the way is just as important. Many people know what they should do to improve their finances, but they don't follow through because internal barriers keep them trapped. The first and most common obstacle is fear, especially the fear of losing money. Kiyosaki makes it clear that fear itself isn't the problem. Everyone feels fear. The issue is how people respond to fear. Rich Dad taught Robert that failure is part of the process of learning and growing. Losing money is not the end of the world, but an opportunity to learn. Most people are taught to avoid risk at all costs, and this mindset keeps them from taking chances that could lead to financial growth. People fear criticism, embarrassment, and loss, so they play it safe. In doing so, they miss out on opportunities. Rich Dad's lesson was to be emotionally prepared for failure, to understand that it's not a sign of weakness but a stepping stone towards strength and wisdom. He encouraged Robert to learn from mistakes and develop the resilience needed to bounce back stronger. Kiyosaki tells a story about how he once lost a lot of money on a real estate deal early in his investing career. It was painful and humbling, but instead of giving up, he studied what went wrong and used the experience as a teacher. He believes that failure is a better teacher than success because it forces deep reflection. Most people are afraid to fail because they associate it with personal inadequacy, but in reality, even the most successful investors and entrepreneurs have experienced losses. What sets them apart is their ability to manage emotions, learn quickly, and move forward without letting fear dominate their decisions. The second obstacle Kiyosaki discusses is cynicism, the internal voice of doubt and negativity. It manifests in questions like, what if it doesn't work? Or what if the market crashes? Cynicism often comes from listening to others who project their own fears and failures. People take advice from friends, family, or co-workers who have no experience or success in the financial realm. These opinions, though often well-intentioned, are based on fear, not fact. Rich Dad taught Robert to do his own research, to seek advice from experts and successful mentors, and to make decisions based on logic, not emotions. Cynicism kills more dreams than failure ever could because it prevents people from even trying. Explains that the mind is powerful and will find whatever it looks for. If you focus on opportunities, you'll begin to see them everywhere. If you focus on problems, you'll find endless reasons to do nothing. Financial intelligence includes controlling your mindset and staying focused on solutions rather than obstacles. Kiyosaki stresses the importance of positive self-talk and surrounding yourself with people who uplift and challenge you. When you're constantly exposed to negative thinkers, it becomes harder to stay confident and decisive. He encourages readers to build a circle of influence that reinforces growth, courage, and financial insight. The third obstacle is laziness, Though Kiyosaki redefines laziness in a unique way, he explains that laziness often disguises itself as busyness. Many people claim they are too busy to learn about investing, manage their finances, or seek new opportunities. They bury themselves in routine work and daily tasks, avoiding the uncomfortable challenge of changing their financial future. He believes that true laziness is when people fail to make time for what matters most. Rich Dad taught him to pay attention to his excuses. If he found himself saying he was too busy, it was often a sign that he was avoiding something important. He offers a strategy to overcome laziness by having a strong why. When you have a powerful reason to achieve financial freedom, like securing your children's future, retiring early, or making a difference in the world, you'll find the motivation to act. Your purpose becomes greater than your excuses. Kiyosaki also recommends practical steps like setting financial goals, scheduling time to read and study, and dedicating regular hours to search for investment deals or business ideas. Discipline, which doesn't come naturally. It must be built with consistent effort and a clear sense of direction. The fourth obstacle is bad habits, particularly financial habits. People develop habits around spending, saving, and investing, and those habits determine their long-term outcomes. Kiyosaki discusses how habits like paying yourself last, spending before saving, or living beyond your means lead to financial stagnation. Rich Dad always taught the importance of paying yourself first, allocating money to savings and investments before spending on lifestyle or bills. This principle forces discipline and ensures that building wealth remains the priority. Changing habits is difficult, but Kiyosaki argues that awareness is the first step. By tracking your income and expenses, reviewing your financial statements, and reflecting on your daily decisions, you begin to identify which habits support your goals and which ones sabotage them. He also stresses the value of delayed gratification, the ability to wait now for a bigger reward later. While others spend money to feel good today, financially successful people prioritize building a better future. This requires patience, self-control, and the ability to think long-term. The fifth and final obstacle is arrogance. Kiyosaki defines arrogance as ego combined with ignorance. It's the attitude of believing you know enough or don't need to learn more. This mindset keeps people from asking questions, seeking advice, or exploring new ideas. Arrogance creates blind spots and leads to bad decisions. Rich Dad warned that when people pretend to know things they don't understand, they are setting themselves up for financial failure. Humility, on the other hand, opens the door to continuous learning. Kiyosaki describes how, even after becoming wealthy, he constantly studied and learned. He read books, attended seminars, and listened to mentors because he knew the world of money was always changing. Tax laws, market conditions, and business trends evolve, and staying informed is essential. He believes that success is not a destination but a journey. The moment you think you've arrived or that you know it all, you stop growing. Arrogance is the enemy of financial intelligence because it keeps you stuck in outdated ideas or poor strategies. He offers practical advice for overcoming arrogance. One way is to always assume there's more to learn. Another is to actively seek feedback and accept when you've made mistakes. He encourages asking questions, even at the risk of looking inexperienced. Surrounding yourself with people who challenge you intellectually and offer diverse perspectives also helps keep ego in check. It's better to ask and learn than to pretend and lose. Throughout the chapter, Kiyosaki reinforces that the journey to wealth is more emotional than technical. The mechanics of money earning, saving, investing can be learned. The challenge is managing the emotions that arise along the way. Fear, doubt, laziness, bad habits, and ego are internal forces that must be understood and mastered. Rich Dad believed that personal growth and financial growth go hand in hand. As you become more disciplined, more emotionally intelligent, and more curious, your financial life begins to improve. Kiyosaki encourages readers to treat the journey to financial freedom like training for a marathon or building a muscle. It takes time, persistence, and resilience. You will face setbacks, losses, and criticism, but every obstacle is also a teacher. The key is to keep going, keep learning, and stay committed to the process. The real reward is not just money, but the confidence and clarity that come from knowing you are in control of your financial future. Getting Started serves as a motivational guide for readers who are ready to take their first steps toward financial independence but are unsure where or how to begin. Robert Kiyosaki understands that most people remain stuck in financial mediocrity not because they lack intelligence, opportunity, or even desire, but because they fail to take action. This chapter is designed to break the inertia by laying out practical steps, mindset shifts, and habits that anyone can adopt to begin their journey toward financial freedom. He emphasizes that becoming rich is not simply about accumulating money, but about developing the right mindset, sharpening your financial intelligence, and cultivating consistent action. Kiyosaki begins by sharing how the most common question people ask him is, "How do I start?" His answer always begins with the same principle: you must have a strong reason or purpose. He explains that a powerful reason becomes your driving force, especially when the path gets tough. If your reason for becoming financially free is vague or shallow, you'll give up at the first sign of difficulty. But if your reason is rooted in deep emotional conviction, whether it's wanting to retire your parents, provide better opportunities for your children, escape the 9-to-5 grind, or create a legacy, then you will persist. Rich Dad always taught that the why behind your goals matters more than the how, because the why fuels the energy and determination needed to figure things out along the way. After establishing the importance of a strong reason, Kiyosaki moves to the second step, learning how to choose. He believes that life is a series of choices, and the financially successful are those who make conscious, educated decisions about their money. Most people let money control them rather than learning how to control it. They work for money but don't learn how to make money work for them. Choosing to be rich is, according to Kiyosaki, a mental decision. It requires you to step out of your comfort zone, think differently from the crowd, and be willing to challenge the beliefs you were raised with. Rich Dad taught Robert that choosing to learn and grow, instead of seeking comfort and security, is what sets wealthy people apart. The third step Kiyosaki outlines is to choose your friends carefully. He isn't suggesting you abandon your current relationships, but rather that you become aware of the influence people have on your thinking. He notes that the rich spend time with others who talk about money, opportunities, investments, and strategies, while the poor and middle class tend to engage in conversations that revolve around consumption, entertainment, and complaining. Surrounding yourself with people who are financially smarter or more experienced encourages growth through osmosis. Their habits, perspectives, and strategies rub off on you. This doesn't mean using people, but seeking mutually beneficial relationships, when knowledge and experience are shared openly. Rich Dad would often say that wealth is contagious, and being in an environment where financial intelligence is valued naturally elevates your mindset. Kiyosaki's fourth suggestion is to master a formula and then learn a new one. He explains that all successful people follow formulas, whether in business, sports, investing, or personal development. Once a formula becomes second nature, it's time to graduate to the next level. For example, you may start with a formula of saving and investing a percentage of your income. Once that's mastered, you move to more advanced concepts like analyzing real estate, understanding stocks, or building a business. The key is to remain a student. Rich Dad taught that stagnation is dangerous and continuous learning is necessary to stay ahead. Financial literacy isn't something you learn once. It's a lifelong pursuit that evolves with the economy, technology, and your own experiences. He then moves into the importance of paying yourself first. This principle, echoed throughout financial literature, means that before paying your bills or spending on expenses, you should first allocate a portion of your income to savings or investments. Kiyosaki emphasizes that this act is not just financial, but psychological. It builds discipline and reinforces the message that your future is a priority. He acknowledges that at times, this approach can create pressure, especially if there's not enough money left for bills. But that pressure, he argues, is what drives creativity, hustle, and smarter decision-making. Rich Dad believed that if you pay everyone else first, there will never be enough left for you. But if you pay yourself first, you'll find a way to cover your obligations. It's a mindset that puts your financial goals at the forefront. Another key point Kiyosaki brings up is the importance of paying your professionals well. Whether it's a good accountant, a knowledgeable broker, or an experienced attorney, surrounding yourself with experts helps you make better financial decisions. Too many people try to save money by cutting corners on professional advice, only to lose more in the long run through poor decisions or missed opportunities. Rich Dad taught Robert to never be the smartest person in the room, always find and to work with people who know more in specific areas. By paying professionals what they're worth, you not only gain their expertise but also their loyalty, guidance, and commitment to your success. Kiyosaki also emphasizes the power of giving, shares that one of the paradoxes of wealth is that the more you give, the more comes back to you. This isn't just about donating money, but also about giving time, sharing knowledge, and helping others grow. He believes that a spirit of generosity creates abundance and keeps you grounded. Rich Dad often said that true wealth is measured, not by how much you accumulate, but by how much you can give without fear. Giving also reinforces the belief that there's always more than enough to go around, which breaks the scarcity mindset that traps many people in financial anxiety. A recurring theme in this chapter is taking action. Kiyosaki reminds readers that knowledge without action is useless. Many people attend seminars, read books, and talk about investing, but never actually make a move. They wait for the perfect time, the perfect deal, or more confidence, but these never fully arrive. Action builds confidence, not the other way around. Rich Dad used to say that ideas are everywhere, but action takers are rare. If you want to become wealthy, you must learn by doing. Start small if you have to, but start. Whether it's buying a small piece of real estate, investing in a stock, or launching a side hustle, movement creates momentum. Waiting leads to missed opportunities and regret. He also talks about the role of heroes and models. Everyone needs people to look up to. Individuals who have achieved what you aspire to. Studying their paths, habits, mistakes, and mindsets can provide a roadmap for your own journey. Kiyosaki shares how he admired Warren Buffett, Peter Lynch, and other successful investors, not just for their wealth but for their thinking. Heroes inspire action and stretch your imagination of what's possible. They also provide a form of mentorship, even from a distance, by offering real-world examples of how wealth can be built ethically, intelligently, and strategically. To the end of the chapter, Kiyosaki reiterates that building wealth is not about being lucky, born into money, or having a genius IQ. It's about making daily decisions that align with your goals, being willing to learn from failure, and constantly seeking to improve your financial literacy. The goal is to build a strong foundation of assets that generate income and offer freedom. He encourages readers to stop saying "I can't afford it" or "I don't know how," and instead ask "How can I afford it?" or "Where can I learn this?" These empowering questions shift your mindset from limitation to possibility. Kiyosaki believes that the first step is the most powerful one. Once you take that initial action, however small, the path begins to unfold. The world opens up with opportunities for those who are willing to move forward. He believes that each person has the potential to achieve financial independence, not through chance, but through conscious, strategic effort. By following these principles, having a strong reason, learning continuously, acting consistently, and surrounding yourself with the right people, you can begin building a financial life that reflects your goals, values, and vision for the future. Still want more? Here are some to-dos. Serves as a practical follow-up to the financial lessons covered throughout the book. Robert Kiyosaki uses this chapter to shift from theory to action by offering a clear and actionable list of steps that anyone can begin taking to start developing financial intelligence and building wealth. He acknowledges that while mindset is crucial, action is what ultimately separates those who dream of being rich from those who actually achieve financial freedom. This chapter is designed to help readers who are ready to take their first steps, but may still feel uncertain about where to begin. The first point Kiyosaki makes is the importance of finding a compelling reason for becoming rich. He emphasizes again that motivation is deeply personal and must come from within. It's not enough to want more money for the sake of money. Instead, he encourages readers to define their emotional reason, a purpose so strong that it will carry them through fear, doubt, and obstacles. For some, it might be the desire to never be dependent on others again, to retire their parents, to escape the stress of financial insecurity, or to give their children a better life. This emotional drive becomes the internal fuel that helps individuals push past resistance, take bold actions, and remain consistent even when results are slow. Next, Kiyosaki stresses the value of daily choice and discipline. He explains that wealth building is not a one-time decision but a daily habit. Every day you have the option to learn or to remain ignorant, to invest or to spend, to grow or to stagnate. These small, seemingly insignificant choices eventually shape your financial future. Reading for just 30 minutes a day about investing, attending a weekly seminar, or simply paying attention to market trends are all decisions that begin building a foundation of knowledge. Over time, these decisions compound and lead to greater financial awareness and opportunity. Kiyosaki reminds readers that the financially successful are those who make learning and action a lifestyle, not just an occasional event. He then highlights the importance of choosing your teachers wisely. In the modern world, there's no shortage of information, but much of it is either incorrect or poorly taught. Many people receive financial advice from individuals who are themselves financially struggling. Kiyosaki warns against this and recommends learning only from those who have walked the path you want to follow. He encourages people to find mentors, read books by successful investors, attend seminars hosted by financially accomplished individuals, and engage in conversations with people who have created wealth in the real world. The goal is to surround yourself with high-quality information and avoid being misled by opinions that are based on fear, scarcity, or inexperience. One of the most practical steps Kiyosaki recommends is mastering one area of investing before branching out. Many people try to learn everything at once: stocks, real estate, crypto, business, but end up becoming overwhelmed and paralyzed by complexity. Instead, he advises starting with one focus area and going deep, whether it's learning to buy and sell rental properties, understanding dividend-paying stocks, or building an online business. The important thing is to gain real-world experience. He explains that each investment class has its own language, set of rules, and risk profile. Once you understand the game in one arena, it becomes easier to transfer those principles to other areas later. Confidence and competence are built through focus, not fragmentation. Kiyosaki then dives into the importance of taking action, even when you're not ready. He points out that many people get stuck in a cycle of preparing, learning, and analyzing but never actually start. They wait for the perfect moment or complete knowledge, both of which never truly come. The truth is that experience is the best teacher, and it only comes through doing. He encourages readers to take small or risk steps to begin. This could be attending open houses to understand the real estate market, investing a small amount in stocks to learn how markets behave, or starting a simple side hustle to experience business firsthand. Each action builds confidence and moves you closer to your goals. One powerful suggestion Kiyosaki offers is to pay yourself first. While this idea was mentioned earlier in the book, he reinforces it here with urgency. This habit, he says, trains your brain to prioritize your future over instant gratification. It also forces creativity. You begin to find ways to manage your money more effectively when you've already committed a portion to savings or investments. Even if it feels uncomfortable at first, this principle builds financial discipline and instills the mindset of ownership over your financial life. He insists that wealth is built through consistency and intention, not convenience. He also emphasizes the need to buy luxuries last, not first. In today's society, many people try to appear wealthy before they are. They buy expensive cars, branded clothes, and flashy items to impress others, often at the cost of their long-term security. Kiyosaki believes in enjoying life but doing so only after your investments can afford it. He teaches that the rich buy luxuries with the income generated from their assets, not from their paychecks. This approach ensures that you never jeopardize your financial foundation for temporary pleasure. Discipline now leads to freedom later. The delayed gratification pays off when your assets start covering your lifestyle expenses. Another practical tip Kiyosaki shares is to build a strong network of advisors and like-minded individuals. Financial growth does not happen in isolation. Having a community where you can share ideas, get feedback, and receive encouragement makes the journey faster and less lonely. He recommends forming small investment groups, attending local meets, and joining online forums where financial strategies are discussed. Not only does this keep you accountable, but it also gives you exposure to different ways of thinking. Collaboration often opens doors to opportunities that would not have been accessible alone. He also encourages readers to be willing to give something up temporarily. Whether it's reducing entertainment expenses, working extra hours to invest in learning, or sacrificing weekends to study markets, every gain comes with some trade-off. Kiyosaki stresses that these sacrifices are not permanent. Once your financial systems are in place and producing passive income, your time and freedom increase dramatically. The early phase of sacrifice lays the groundwork for a life of flexibility, choice, and abundance. A significant part of this chapter also focuses on investing in self-education. Kiyosaki believes that your mind is your greatest asset or your greatest liability. Investing in courses, books, coaches, and real-life experiences pays higher returns than any stock or real estate deal. He advises people to develop a habit of reading financial news, biographies of successful people, and materials that stretch their thinking. The more you learn, the more connections your mind begins to make, and opportunities that once seemed invisible become obvious. This mental sharpening not only increases your financial IQ but also boosts your confidence in navigating complex decisions. Toward the conclusion of the chapter, Kiyosaki stresses the importance of persistence. The journey toward wealth is rarely smooth. There will be mistakes, failures, critics, and setbacks. What determines success is not perfection but perseverance. Those who keep showing up, keep learning, and keep adjusting eventually break through. He recounts how he and his wife faced years of struggle, rejection, and financial pressure before achieving success, but they never gave up. That resilience was forged through belief in their goals and the determination to create a better life. He finishes with a call to live intentionally. Time passes quickly, and many people wake up decades later with regrets about what they didn't do. The earlier you start, the more you compound your learning, wealth, and freedom. Kiyosaki wants the reader to leave behind passivity and step into a role of conscious creator in their financial life. Each day is a new chance to make progress. And by applying even a few of the steps from this chapter consistently, anyone can begin their journey toward a richer, freer, and more purposeful life. 10 Steps to Awaken Your Financial Genius acts as a powerful culmination of the entire book's message. In this chapter, Robert Kiyosaki outlines 10 practical and mindset-oriented steps that serve as a roadmap for anyone serious about becoming financially independent. Rather than offering a strict formula for instant wealth, Kiyosaki provides tools that help develop long-term financial intelligence, mental strength, and the ability to navigate the real-world challenges of money. The focus is on waking up the inner genius that everyone has within them, the part that's capable of making bold decisions, learning quickly, and building wealth intentionally. These 10 steps combine emotional discipline, curiosity, action, and consistent growth to help readers move from financial confusion to clarity. The first step he presents is the need for a strong spiritual and emotional foundation. Kiyosaki emphasizes that people need a deep, personal reason for wanting to be rich. He insists that without a burning desire, the journey becomes too difficult. Life has a way of testing commitment through setbacks, criticism, fear, and failure. Only those with a clear why will have the motivation to push through. He encourages readers to dig deep into their hearts and find what matters most to them. It could be freedom, legacy, love, contribution, or security. Once that emotional engine is ignited, the willpower to learn, adapt, and act becomes unstoppable. This desire becomes the bedrock upon which all other financial habits are built. The second step is to feed your mind with quality education. Kiyosaki believes that the brain is like a muscle. The more it is used, the stronger it becomes. He shares how Rich Dad constantly read books, attended seminars, and surrounded himself with smart people. This habit of lifelong learning helped him stay ahead of trends, avoid costly mistakes, and recognize hidden opportunities. Kiyosaki urges readers to make reading, studying, and learning a daily habit. He recommends starting with personal finance books, investment strategies, biographies of successful entrepreneurs, and then moving on to broader subjects like psychology, economics, and business law. The more perspectives one gathers, the sharper their financial judgment becomes. Feeding the mind with empowering knowledge builds confidence, awareness, and the ability to take action in unpredictable markets. The third step is to choose friends wisely. Kiyosaki reinforces the idea that we become like the people we spend time with. If you constantly surround yourself with people who fear risk, complain about their jobs, or blame the economy for their lack of progress, you're likely to absorb those attitudes. On the other hand, being around individuals who talk about investments, brainstorm new ventures, and embrace growth challenges you to evolve. He is careful to note that this does not mean cutting people out of your life, but rather being intentional about the energy and perspectives you allow to influence your mindset. Wealth is often a result of conversations, collaborations, and ideas shared within supportive networks. The fourth step is mastering the power of self-discipline. According to Kiyosaki, self-discipline is the bridge between goals and results. It is what enables you to delay gratification, resist distractions, and stay focused on your priorities. Rich Dad used to say that discipline is doing what's necessary, even when you don't feel like it. This includes saving before spending, investing before upgrading your lifestyle, and staying committed to your education and goals. Kiyosaki suggests creating routines and rituals that reinforce productive behaviors, whether it's setting aside time each day to study investments, tracking your expenses weekly, or revisiting your goals monthly. Consistency breeds momentum. Discipline, once developed, becomes your silent partner in wealth building. The fifth step is paying yourself first. This idea, deeply rooted in financial classics like The Richest Man in Babylon, is one of Kiyosaki's core principles. Most people spend money on bills, debt, and consumption before allocating any to themselves. Kiyosaki urges readers to reverse that habit. Before paying anyone else, set aside a portion for savings and investments. Doing so forces creativity and determination. You'll figure out how to handle your other responsibilities because your financial freedom becomes non-negotiable. It also signals to your subconscious mind that you value your future more than temporary comfort. Over time, this habit builds a financial cushion, investment capital, and confidence in your money management skills. The sixth step is to pay your brokers and advisors well. Kiyosaki addresses the common tendency to cut costs by avoiding professional help. He argues that this mindset often leads to bigger losses. If you want strong returns, hire strong advisors. Whether it's a good accountant, a savvy real estate agent, or an experienced financial planner, quality professionals can help you make smarter decisions and avoid costly pitfalls. He encourages treating these relationships as investments rather than expenses. Paying a skilled broker who helps you spot a profitable deal is far more valuable than trying to go it alone and missing the opportunity entirely. Rich Dad often said that you get what you pay for, and paying well attracts loyalty, attention, and top-tier service. The seventh step is to be an Indian giver, which Kiyosaki redefines in a positive way. He means that every investment should have a return, and the goal is to get your original money back while still holding onto the asset. For instance, if you buy a property, renovate it, refinance it, and pull out your initial investment while keeping the rental income, you've effectively created infinite returns. The idea is to move money through opportunities in a way that maximizes returns and minimizes risk. He encourages readers to think about how quickly they can recoup their investment and reinvest it again. This mindset accelerates wealth by recycling capital rather than locking it up indefinitely. The eighth step is to use assets to buy luxuries. Most people use earned income to buy cars, vacations, and gadgets. Kiyosaki suggests flipping this habit. He believes luxuries should be rewards paid for by passive income from investments, not by wages. This practice not only forces you to build assets first, but also teaches patience and strategic thinking. Before buying a new car, figure out how many rental units, dividend stocks, or online income streams would be needed to fund that purchase. This habit transforms consumer behavior into a wealth-building process. It aligns your lifestyle desires with your investment goals and keeps your assets growing even as you enjoy your success. The ninth step is to choose heroes. Kiyosaki believes that role models help us bypass years of trial and error. By studying the stories, habits, and strategies of successful people, we gain insight into how they think and operate. Heroes make the impossible seem possible. They expand our beliefs and motivate us to aim higher, whether it's Warren Buffett, Elon Musk, Oprah Winfrey, or a local business leader. Choosing someone to admire and study provides a blueprint for personal development. He encourages readers to learn from their heroes' successes and their failures. What books do they read? How do they spend their time? What decisions shaped their journey? These insights, when applied consistently, can create powerful shifts in your own path. The 10th and final step is to teach, and you shall receive. Kiyosaki shares that teaching others what you learn not only reinforces your own understanding but also attracts new opportunities and relationships. When you share knowledge, you become a magnet for conversations, deals, and mentors. He recounts how many of his biggest breakthroughs came after he taught financial principles to others. The act of explaining concepts forces you to master them. It also builds trust and credibility, which are crucial in business and investing. Whether you write a blog, mentor someone, or start a discussion group, teaching accelerates your growth and creates a ripple effect that multiplies your influence and income. Throughout this chapter, Kiyosaki brings everything together into a system of proactive thinking and doing. These 10 steps are designed not to be followed once but repeated again and again at higher levels. As your experience grows, so does your understanding of these principles. Each time you revisit them, you refine your approach, increase your intelligence, and get closer to financial freedom. The goal is not perfection but progress, a mindset of curiosity, courage, and commitment that allows you to evolve financially and personally over time.